Yeah, I think so, and I think that the skepticism, I was when you were explaining that word popped into my mind
Yeah.
too, of skepticism, and when you're talking about on that first category, that this is a thing of faith in the sense of like believing what is true. It's
Yeah.
also, I see it too actually, and this isn't like, I see it a bit differently. I see it more as an issue of obedience than I do. Not that faith isn't involved, but like
Yeah.
as Catholics, we're called to be obedient. We're called to be obedient to God, and we're called to be obedient to the church.
I mean, this was earlier in the year that it was the gospel where the Lord said, like, if you love me, you will keep my commandments.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
our obedience to his commandments is an expression of the love
Right.
that we've
And
received for
it's
him
also
and
an
that we have
imitation-
for him.
It's also an imitation of Christ who was obedient to the Father.
He said, I was obedient to the will of my Father, and I ask
So-
you to do the same. So,
Yeah. So, and this is where the sort of, does that mean that we have to like blindly pretend that we know everything and that everything is like makes sense? No. But there's a difference between asking questions of like, I don't understand this, where the disposition is, but I believe the church is right.
Right.
But I don't understand. So like, I'm wrestling, I'm struggling. So can we talk about explain to me? Okay, you explained it to me. I'm still not sure, but I trust. I'm giving my trust to the church and to Christ. Versus like, no, I'm skeptical. The church is probably wrong, so I'm going to that's very different to me. And I think that that's an attitude, that obedience to the church and to what she teaches through the guidance of the Holy Spirit is the disposition of holiness.
Yeah.
We don't get to create it.
No.
It's not ours to create, and we're invited to participate in these sort of things. So ask questions, these sort of things, but the sort of disposition ought to be one of trust and reliance on the church and the Holy Spirit working through the church. So I think that's like, incredibly important. And if we approach with this sort of modern skepticism that like, I know better, it's like, well, you don't. Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's when we're talking about skepticism and just questioning, like once again, we really should question. That's how we learn. That's how we grow in the faith, is to question this. Is like, and this is not uncommon even throughout all of the Old Testament and even into the Gospels and the New Testament. Like, people had to ask questions. Like, Lord, what do I need to be saved? Okay, you must be born again in water and in the Spirit. Okay. Does that mean I have to crawl back up into the womb? Like, what are you talking about here?
Yeah.
Like, there are questions. And so I never fear from that. And this kind of brings up for me the figure of the Apostle Thomas, right? Thomas kind of carries that moniker of doubting Thomas, and as if it's a pejorative thing. I don't necessarily think it is. I have a different take on Thomas as the doubter. So Thomas in his life, he missed the first appearance of the resurrected Lord. He wasn't there. I don't know. Nobody knows what he was doing. He maybe overslept, or he was out maybe running to 7-Eleven getting a hot dog or something.
Yeah, that's a throwback.
Yeah, it is. Okay. For those who know. But he missed the first appearance of the resurrected Lord to the apostles, and then they tell him about it. He's like, I don't know about that. Like, I saw that man crucified. And then he says, unless I put my finger into the nail marks and my hand into his side, I will not believe. And so that's a unique kind of doubt, right?
Yeah.
So somebody's proclaiming the resurrection to him, and he says, he puts up this barrier. Unless these things happen, I will not believe. Now, that's different than just questioning, right? To say, what do you mean?
Stronger.
That's very strong. That's a definitive statement there. And I think that's where if we're talking about doubts and questions and skepticisms and this whole kind of swirly-murly mix of things in our heads, it's okay to question. But when you present your things and these doubts as definitive, I will not believe, that's doubt, right? That's a barrier and a separation there. And then the Lord appears later on and turns directly to Thomas and says, "You put your fingers here, put your hand here," right? And so you see the Lord approach Thomas in his doubts precisely where he said he would not believe.
Yeah.
And then Thomas makes a beautiful act of faith, my Lord and my God. So he moves from doubt, a definitive doubt, to a definitive act of faith.
Right.
And the Lord meets him and encounters him there. So I don't ever fear when people say, oh, I'm doubting, or I have doubts about my relationship with God, or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, that's okay. But those doubts should lead us closer to Jesus.
Father Jacob-Bertrand, would you say that you're optimistic about this subscription appeal?
No.
Would you say that you're optimistic about anything?
No.
Well, I am. Folks, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd greatly appreciate it. Cheers.